Bulls Nation is still trying to sort through the recent news report rumor that the Bulls are quietly gauging interest on Zach LaVine. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about DeLon Wright maybe as a target for the Bulls this offseason. We'll get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize. You can follow the show right off the top at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform that we are on. But let's get into it. So, I had an emergency episode yesterday, as did most every Bulls content creator, in regards to the Zach LaVine news / rumors that he is being shopped, interest is being gauged. You're going to see a lot of different variations on that topic. And ultimately, what it boils down to is just this quote from AK. My responsibility is to look at everything. At the end of the day, to be a 500 team is not good enough. It's not good enough for this organization. It's not good enough for the fan base. They deserve better. So I'm going to have to look at everything. How can I help this group to do better? We have to move forward. I'll be open to anything. This is what AK told us on April 15th. Now, yesterday, it just so happens that yesterday was June 15th. Just a couple of months later, that we now hear that he was gauging interest after already being reported that, the number 3 pick and, Bulls are in contract discussions. They're already interviewing, or they have been interviewing draft prospects, things like that. There should be no shock amongst the Bulls fan base, even if AK is looking or listening to deals, right? Should be no surprise with that. The quietly gauging interest part, especially from the writer who initially wrote this over on Yahoo Sports, who used to be a Bleacher Report writer, at the end of the day, there's a lot ado about nothing. This is normal offseason activities. Now, while I know that has sent the let's blow it all up Bulls fans clamoring and cheering, thinking that something's going to happen, still more than likely not going to happen. This team is not likely to rebuild, blow it all up, doing anything of the sort. And honestly, They should be looking to retool, absolutely. And if you can get a number 2 or number 3 overall pick, you got to go with all your chips out at that point if you believe that you can get a guy who you can truly build the next stage of the franchise around. And that's kind of what I said over on that special video yesterday that I dropped. It's just don't let this be too shocking for you. And I know a lot of Bulls fans are still trying to figure this out. It kind of quieted down towards the end of the day, as it did. We're heading into the big part of free agency where, you're going to hear more stuff focused on the Bradley Beal trade, which I do think that the Bradley Beal move could be, now I wouldn't say a precursor to the Zach LaVine deal, but I think that because the Bulls can net back anything that they do in a Zach trade, they're going to get back more than what the Wizards are going to get for Bradley Beal. And the Bradley Beal trade, if it does go down, especially if it happens before the draft, may be that trade that we see every offseason that really sets the tone for what the rest of the moves are going to be like, right? Sets the trade value, right? When you look at last year, the Rudy Gobert trade, it really did kind of set that expectation. Now, they got, 5 first-round picks for him? And then you look at DeJounte Murray trade, 3 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray, and then you look at the Donovan Mitchell trade on top of that, right? So those trades kind of all set the precedent for what the value, how teams were valuing first-round picks and everything else that offseason. The Bradley Beal move is probably going to be that next one up, right? The only other one that I could think maybe do that is maybe if it's Dame Lillard who's moved, if the Portland Trail Blazers come to their senses and decide to hold on to their pick. But that doesn't seem likely, right? To have the Hornets and the Trail Blazers at number 2 and number 3, nobody quite knows what either one of those franchises are going to do, is crazy. But that's just where we sit right now. Now, I do think this, in all fairness, if the Bulls were to blow it up, of course, they're going to get more back for Zach LaVine than a DeMar DeRozan, period, right? That's just the reality of it. And when you look into trying to trade into maybe the number 2 or number 3, it was, unless you just completely fleece the Hornets or the Trailblazers, it was probably going to take a Zach LaVine or a combination of DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Williams, something like that, right? But I don't see, and I've been saying this for a while, I don't see the Bulls trading into the top 3. I just don't think that they have enough to where if Portland is really going to make which they have been, right? If it's as it's been expected and they are making that pick available out there in the free agent market or in the trade market, I think they're going to get a lot more than what the Bulls can offer. We've already heard now that the Wizards may be looking at the number 2 or number 3 overall pick. We've heard that Bradley Beal also would accept the trade to the Miami Heat. He's the only player with the no trade clause. So, we'll see. We'll see. Last thing that looks like we got as far as news was that the Blazers may be actually on track to keep the number 3 pick. Because it seems like the interest that they've gotten in it hasn't been quite to their liking. So it looks like the Suns are also shopping a DeAndre Ayton, looking for that trade market. It appears that, that market's lean too. I think we're going to see an offseason where you're going to hear a lot of rumor trades, right? The Zion Williamson, then we heard that the Pelicans aren't actually interested in moving him. I think we're going to see an offseason. There's going to be a lot of rumors. There's going to be a lot of talk. There's going to be a lot of teams trying to fill out what they can get from other teams. But ultimately, I think this is going to be an offseason where things stay primarily the same. I really don't think like the Bradley Beal, yeah, he's probably going to be moved. DeAndre Ayton, I don't know. I think the Suns are going to end up keeping him. Zion, they're definitely not going to trade. I never really believed those rumors anyway. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think the free agent market's going to be really fun to watch. I think there's going to be some trades on draft days, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be the huge number of trades where we see a lot of big names move and things like that. So we'll see. We even heard that Kristaps Porzingis, who was expected to go out in the open market, is actually considering picking up his $36 million option with the Washington Wizards. So, we'll see. But one of the teams that the Bulls could take advantage of, especially with the Bradley Beal thing, is DeLon Wright. And so I look at DeLon Wright and I look at what he brings, right? And I look at the fact that he's a solid 3-and-D player, right? Now, not anything amazing. I don't want to act like it, but there was a writer who actually wrote, his name was Buckley. He wrote an article on the Bulls going after DeLon Wright saying this. DeLon Wright has just about everything other than shooting in his arsenal. He's a versatile defender and a downhill attacker with more than 3 times as many assists to turnovers. He's becoming slightly more viable from distance too, averaging a 0.8 triples on 36% shooting the past 2 seasons. The 31-year-old might be obtainable too. The Washington Wizards have overhauled their front office and might finally be ready to embrace a rebuilding project that's felt inevitable for years now. Also, he's a solid defender. Here's what I'll say. I hope that the Bulls have their if it comes down to a DeLon Wright signing, just start Kobe White, right? Just start Kobe White, in my opinion. It's all cool. It's fine and dandy to, look at other prospects and veterans. Maybe you can give him the Goran Dragic deal where he's coming off the bench. But I think our first priority needs to be, if you're going after a point guard, trying to find a starting caliber point guard or find yourself some shooters. That's what needs to happen, right? And if you feel like Kobe White can hold the point guard position down, which a lot of people do, at that point, then focus on adding more shooting to the team. Hope maybe some size. Maybe both if you can do that, right? So that's what you want to look at with this team. DeLon Wright, I understand the interest from or the reason why people are writing about it, but ultimately, I don't see DeLon Wright as somebody who moves the needle in any considerable way. Honestly, at this point, yes, he's a veteran. Yes, you kind of more so know what you're getting from him. That turnover to assist ratio, amazing. Don't want to take away from that. But at the end of the day, I would rather bet on the development of Ayo Dosunmu than I would bringing in a 31-year-old who's going to probably get paid the vet minimum, and we're going to have to spend an additional $2 million out of our goddamn mid-level exception that can go to places that we needed a little bit more. That's my feelings on it. Doesn't have to be everyone's feelings, but that's kind of where I sit on that. I don't necessarily see that as a move that necessarily helps the Chicago Bulls. But, let me know what you guys think. DeLon Wright as a potential target. Trying to go through every little target that pops up, things like that. But, all right, we're also doing our draft coverage, right? And so with the Bulls maybe trading into the bottom end of the first round, we're going to look at today Jett Howard. Now, this is a 6'8", 215-pound guard/forward out of Michigan. Played a lot of shooting guard. I think has enough of size and bulk, especially if he adds on at 215 to play the 3. Now, there may be some questions on, all right, what does he bring that Dalen Terry doesn't? And that would be a fair enough assessment there. But when you look at this guy, he'll be 20 years old before the start of the season. Still young. He's a floor spacer. He comes in and he can shoot that thing from the perimeter. 35% on three-point field goal percentage at 7.3 attempts per game during the regular season. That's nice. He has confidence. He's a nice bouncy shooter as well. He knows how to come off screens, pin downs, handoffs as well. He also has a nice step back, and he has a nice ability to still score out the triple threat, which we don't see a lot as well. Effective shooter for mid-range, also can shoot the ball from all over the field. Good pick and roll. He kind of shoots off a pick and roll. You don't want to really use him too much for playmaking skills, but he also is starting to flash towards the end of the collegiate season a little bit of a post game. And we know that that's something that guards, forwards, small forwards, wing players typically start adding later into their career, but I like him a lot. The thing is, doesn't have a lot of athleticism, doesn't have a bunch of explosiveness either. And the more physical players, he may have a hard time defending them. And that's something you want to look at. Doesn't get to the free throw line a lot. Only 2.7 free throw attempts per game. So again, you may want to look at that, but hey, that's something that you can carve out at him. Doesn't make the big splashy plays, but makes the right plays, right? And so with that said, off-ball defense may be a little bit of a struggle for him as well, but overall, Jett Howard in the back of the end of the first round, I like him as a shooter. I like that he brings that. I like that he has upside to maybe turn into an overall scorer, but if nothing less, he can be a damn good scorer at the next level. So looking at that, overall, I really like his shot profile. I like his skill set as well on this Bulls team. You guys can let me know what you think on that one down below. All right, before we go, I want to get into one of these text messages we got over the week. This one's from the 312, and they say this. This may be irrelevant now, but I believe Marco is more a 4 than a 5. It is the Bulls' responsibility to develop this young man. He is an average to good shooter, can pass, a good ball handler for his size, develop where he's weak, rebounding and defense. Most young big men don't have the offensive skill sets Marco has. Don't blame the players. Take a serious look at the coaches working with these young guys. I would disagree with you that he needs to work on rebounding. I think Marko Simonovic is a damn good rebounder. I think that's now the more physical, he's a better, I think, offensive rebounder than defensive rebounder. But with that being said, here's what I'll say. Yes, it is on the coaching staff to develop the young guys, but also you can't develop something out of somebody that's not there. And I don't know if it's like, I saw every Windy City Bulls game last season. Not all of them live, right? Of course, I watched some of them after the fact. But I saw every single Windy City Bulls game last season and most of the season prior to that. Marko Simonovic can goddamn right score the ball, period. He can score. He can shoot solidly for a big man. Like you said, his ball handling and passing, really solid for a big man. His issues is always going to be on the defensive side of the ball. And that is the thing where we already have some of the weaker defenders. You can't always, some people are just going to be weak defenders, right? And the thing is that we won't even know if Marco's defense is going to be the huge liability because he just hasn't gotten a chance. I will say that he needs and if he's going to be on the roster next season, he deserves a shot at playing some actual NBA minutes to see how he's going to develop. You can look at somebody in a box all day long, right? But until you put them out there at the NBA level so they can adjust to the physicality and the intelligence needed to play at the NBA level, you can just talk about it all day. Marko Simonovic has some NBA ready-made skills, some. But in totality, does his weaknesses take too much away from it to where he hurts his team worse than the benefits he would bring offensively and rebounding-wise? That's always been the question with Marko Simonovic, and I think that we may never know the answer to that, at least not on this team, right? I just don't know. Like, for a time where we needed size, if anything, right, you look at it, the Bulls can't add some size this offseason, maybe they do look at bringing in Marco a little bit more and playing him a little bit more. This man has been on an actual NBA, not a two-way, an actual NBA contract for 2 years now. 2 of them. And we've had two-way players play more NBA minutes than him. That's concerning, right? Now, as far as if he's more of a 4 than a 5, I think the modern-day game would have him as a 5. But even then, you have to be able to play defensively. And most 5s at this level, I just don't know if Marco can stick with the athleticism at that area. And that may be the same thing that Billy Donovan's looking at, right? You never know, right? It seemed like they were really high on him just to bury him in the G League. And yeah, while we said before that they basically used the G League for Marco as a draft and stash, they just stashed him in the G League. At some point, you have to start asking yourself and questioning, all right, what's the plan with him? And if he's not part of the long-term plan, this is the year. He's a partially guaranteed deal. You got to get him off the books, and we have to actually use that spot for somebody who's going to help the roster. That's kind of my thinking on it. That's been my thinking on Marco for a while. The young man has some skills, and he has some talent. But at the end of the day, all the talent in the world, if you're not going to use it, it don't matter. And like I always say, potential is not always realized. And while Marco has some great potential, It may just not be realized, at least not for the Chicago Bulls, and we may end up looking at it again, once again, as Marco being another player, a European player that just came over, was not done right, was not utilized correctly, and maybe he goes back to Europe. Maybe he goes back to Europe, eventually comes back to the NBA. Maybe he finds his way on another NBA team. Marko Simonovic is 23 years old. He's not the 19, 20 years old or anything like that. It's time. And if the Bulls front office and the coaching staff don't think it's time, to get somebody in here that it's time for, period. That's what we need. That's what we deserve. We don't have, and I've said it before, we don't have any space left for vanity spots on this roster. We just don't. We don't. And so if Marco isn't ready or is not going to contribute, I think they need to look and see what to do with that spot. That's my opinion. You guys can let me know what you think down below, but that is it for today. Make sure you're following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related because of you guys. And like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See Red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.